with that. Okay. And you can see game now?
Yep, I can see it.
All right, awesome. Okay, so right off the bat, when you're loading into a game like this, what are you thinking of? Like, what is your thought process going to lane?
Yeah, so when I'm going to lane, I'm basically trying to figure out my matchup, kind of figuring out where I should be positioning. Well, for Lowy specifically, like the tentacles too, like where I should be positioning the tentacles, where I should be, where the jungler's going to start,
Mm-hmm.
and basically kind of the looking through the jungle and making sure that nobody invades.
So yeah, you're on the right track here. The trick here is also consistency with what you're doing in the early game. So every game you should be thinking about, obviously, the runes you're going to go in champ select, the items you're starting, whatever. The big thing, though, you need to do every single game, which it sounds like you already have an idea of, is figure out where the jungler starts. And from there, though, you shouldn't be making active decisions about how you're going to play your lane. So if you decide that, okay, I'm against a Kayn, and maybe there's one really popular route, like you have pre-existing knowledge in that situation of what his route looks like, and you can predict where he's going to go. After that, you want to look at where your jungler's going to path, because you can see that, right? It's right in front of you. He's not in fog or anything. He's on your team. And based on where those two junglers are pathing, you can make a decision on how you're going to play your lane. I'm going to dive into that in a little bit more. Now, but before I get to that, I want to talk about a little more about the enemy jungler's pathing. So obviously, we talked about pre-existing knowledge. If you have that, great. It's easy to predict where the jungler's starting. Well, what if you don't have that, right? So obviously, I'm sure you're aware of this. So I'm not gonna. Usually, I do a brain test, but I'm just gonna go right into it because I'm sure you already know. Watching for where people show, right? If bot lane shows late, they probably leash. If top showed late and bot showed instantly, he probably started top side. That kind of decision making. Or if they both show late or both show instantly, you can't make an accurate decision unless you have pre-existing knowledge of the jungler or you invaded to get vision, right? And you spotted him out. So in those situations, you don't really know where he is. Either way, you use that information to make a decision. And that decision is, once you get to lane, you need to decide how you're going to play the first 3 levels. So do you know when you get level 2?
Yeah, the first melee minion of the second wave.
Okay. What about level 3?
I don't remember level 3. I think it's probably, if I was guess, it was the fourth wave.
No, it's 3rd
I
wave.
think
So this is
it's third
really,
wave.
this is really important. As a top laner and solo laners, mid lane should know this too. You should know levels 2, 3, and 6. Those are the most important levels to learn for early game. If you can memorize 4 and 5, more power to you. Level 2, you obviously already know the first melee of the second wave, right? Level 3 is going to be the first 3 melees of the cannon wave, which is the 3rd wave. So that will get you level 3. And the reason those 2 levels matter is because level 2, obviously, you get your second ability. It's really strong. And similarly with level 3, you now have access to all your basic abilities. It's a very big power spike, right? Level 4 is still an advantage if you get it performed, but there's no sudden surprise or extra resource you have access to. You just get some more HP, some more mana, whatever, right? More base stats. But the first 3 are very impactful because that's where you get access to abilities. And similarly, level 6, again, you gain access to an ability, right? That's your ultimate. And that is going to be the cannon wave that arrives just around, if not right after, 5 minutes and 30 seconds. That cannon wave will always get you level 6 unless you either got a shit ton of XP from killing people a bunch or you gave up XP by dying a bunch or getting really bad recalls, right? Even if you miss some XP or whatever, you will still hit 6 in that wave because it's a cannon wave. There's a lot of XP to be gained there. So you won't necessarily get it on the 2nd or 3rd minion every single time, but you will get it on that wave. And that's important because 1 is recognizing when your power spike is coming, and 2, if you're playing against an enemy laner, right, they obviously are going to get level 6 too at that point, barring edge cases where they've lost a ton of XP in the early game, right? That's good for you because then you can recognize, okay, I'm getting 6 this wave, but so are they, right? And depending on the matchup, that matters, right? So definitely commit, and I would write this down if you haven't, or whatever you can do to memorize this. Levels 2, 3, and 6, right? So level 2 you already know, first melee of the second wave. Level 3 is going to be first 3 melees of the third wave, and level 6 is going to be the cannon wave that arrives after 5 minutes and 30 seconds, right? So commit that to
I just
memory.
wrote those down.
Yeah, and that's something. If you get caught off guard by level 2 or 3 or level 6, starting now, going forward in the future, you were not paying attention, right? And you need to fix that, right? That means that even though you wrote down it didn't work, so you need to start creating reminders for yourself. And the things I'm going to talk about going forward, the same process to remind yourself applies to all of them. So if I talk about how to identify where to split push, if that's what you're deciding to do, and you not doing that consistently or making those decisions consistently, that means you need to remind yourself. And the system that I use for myself is I have a notebook that I write down every little thing that I screw up on in the middle of a game. And then if I am in the middle of a game, I will just write it down right away, even if I'm in the middle of lane, because I want to think about it and actively work on it. And then if I die in my gray screen, I'm reading through my entire list. And then when I'm loading in or exiting game, I'm reading through it. Before I start for the day, I'm reading through it. But when I end for the day, I'm reading through it. If I have time at work or whatever, depending on your job, you may not be able to, but I will read through it. And I don't do it as much now, but when I was actively trying to improve, I did this without fail all the time, every second I could get during the day. Because what it does is it keeps it in your head. And when you are, let's say you're trying to practice on your own, right? Most people do this. They're like, okay, today I'm going to work on last hitting. So you do your last hit drills for the first, 10, 20 minutes, whatever, and then you jump into your first game. And it's fresh in your head, like you just really tunnel into focusing last hitting game 1. Awesome. Game 2, but then you have 20 minutes of the game to play still when lane phase breaks out, and it's harder to get that last hitting practice unless you're really good at managing waves, which you probably aren't if you're weak in last hitting. And then, so you go into game 2, even though 20 minutes of not focusing has passed, you still remember it. Okay, you focus on it again, great. And then you have to wait another 20 to 30 minutes before getting to that lane phase practice again. And by game 3 or 4, you're not actually thinking about it. You're passively working on it, but it's not at the front of your head. You didn't go into game thinking, I'm working last hitting anymore. It's kind of floating in the back there like a million other things are. And the idea is, when you're working on something, we want to keep it in front of your mind, right? We want you to keep focused on it. And that's where that notebook comes in. You don't have to use a notebook. You can use the Sticky Notes app on your computer if you have a Windows laptop or desktop. A lot of pros use that. You see it in streams. It's just a little sticky note sticks on your desktop. They write out things they want to work on, or bands or items or builds or whatever, things they just want to think about. And they see it every time they go out of game, right? When they're in queue or whatever, it's just always there. Another opportunity to remind yourself is physical stick notes, right? You can stick them on your screen. Like, whatever it takes, try something. I wouldn't even try to see if you can remember these things by yourself. I would literally just write them down and just pick one system. And if you don't like the notebook, try the sticky notes. And if you try the sticky notes and you don't like it, try the notebook, right? But do that. So that's enough of that little spiel. But building good practice habits is half the battle of improving at this game. And if you had really good practice habits, you probably wouldn't need me to coach you right now. So,
yeah.
All right. Anyways, we're in lane phase. I like that you watched the buff. You should do this without fail every game. I also like that you weren't AFK in base too long, because when you start a League of Legends game, you start a League of Legends games, right? The game doesn't start at 1 minute 30. It starts at 0, right? So that's good. You shouldn't ever AFK. You should piss and eat before you play. And we're in game right now. So now going back to the whole idea of looking where the jungler is starting to figure out where you're going to be, or how you're going to be playing the first 3 levels. So we identified when those levels were. We identified how to figure out where the enemy jungler is starting. And obviously we know how to figure out where your own jungler is starting, right? So with that information, you decide if you're going to push, get pushed, or freeze the wave for the early game, right? For the first 3 to 4 levels. Depending on the information you have, will allow you to get through the first 3 to 4 levels consistently, safely, every single game. Because we're not necessarily looking to kill our laner every game. We're looking to get items to build up and to play to our win condition. If we kill our laner, they make mistakes, or we force them out during that process, great. But we want to have consistency. We want to get out of lane phase, even if not ahead, every single game. And doing things like these behaviors helps you get there. So in this game, if we rewind, let's go back a little bit. So we don't see anyone yet. If we're watching. You should also stand a little bit further back so you don't show. I think you do that. Yeah, you showed. Well, actually, let's see. Let's back up a little bit. I want to make sure I'm not wrong. Yeah, you should. Okay. Anyways, at this point, we're looking to see where people show, right? So we're looking. So top lane showed, and then bot lane showed at the same time. Now, Kled came from here, which isn't very common if you leash, so I think it's safe to say that the jungler started bot. So at this point, we know that the jungler started bot lane. Their jungler is I forgot who he was. He's Lee Sin, right?
Lee Sin.
So Lee Sin probably. I mean, he could do a bot gank. I mean, they do have a Thresh. That's the thing where I would be paying attention to see if Lee Sin shows up at bot lane in the next like 20 seconds. If he doesn't, then we can assume that he's doing a full clear, because most junglers will do a pseudo full clear into one of the scuttles almost every game, right?
Yeah.
So with that said, if we know we started bot lane, where is he going to be around scuttle spawn?
At what time is Scuttle spawn?
This is also something you should memorize if you don't know when scuttle spawns.
Scuttle spawns at 4 minutes?
3:15. Yep, 3:15. So
he'll be top river.
Yeah, so because he's going to clear, if he started bot and we are expecting a pseudo full clear at least, then he's going to clear bot to top, meaning that he's near the top side of the map, which means he's probably going to want to go for the top scuttle, right? And if that spawns at 3:15, we can expect him to be near river around 3:15, right? So, but with that information though, ignoring the scuttle spawns and whatever, the whole idea here is that we deduce that Lee Sin's going to be bot side going to top, which means he's going to be in the vicinity of top lane to influence it, which means if you're pushed up, right, you're vulnerable to gank. So you don't necessarily want to push the lane. Now, on the flip side, your jungler is also clearing bot to top because we can see that. That means if you did push, your jungler should be in the top area as well, which means that you could push if you wanted to because you have coverage. Coverage is when you have some sort of teammate in the vicinity to back you up on a play or an action that you're carrying out, right? So if you are shoving in a tower, coverage would mean Rammus is in the area, so if you got ganked, he could counter gank, right? So you could push here because your jungler is going bot to top. Now, if Rammus started topside, where would he be around the scuttle spawn?
If he had started topside, he would be at the bottom river.
Yeah, and let's say Lee Sin didn't change his path, right? That means Lee Sin would be top, and you'd be alone because Rammus would have cleared in this scenario, right? So in that situation, do you think it's wise to push ever?
No, it'd be very vulnerable.
Exactly. So you want to do things where you're last hitting only, or if you're using your Q to last hit a wave or whatever, you're doing it in where it doesn't hit any of the full health minions. You're only getting the Q to hit on the low minions, right? And you don't want to trade too hard level 1 in those situations because that pushes the wave. So if you identify that I can't push here because of where junglers are, then you shouldn't be doing things that draw aggro or push away faster than it normally would, right? And that's what we're looking to do here is figure out where the jungler started, figure out if you have coverage or not, and even if you do have coverage, you may not necessarily want to push anyways, but what we're looking for is you just to make a decision. It may not be the right one, but we want you to get your information, make a decision, and that will influence where you try to get the wave in the early game, and the idea is you keep it there for the first 3 to 4 levels, and it's not hard to do that. It may take a little bit of practice to build a consistency, but it is definitely doable. And once you reach levels 4 or 5 or whatever, you get the first recall in, then you'll end up in a situation where people are finally successfully getting waves into tower with relative ease, and then it'll start the ping pong effect where, let's say this wave were to push into this tower, well, then it'd push all the way back to this tower, and it'd just go back and forth, right? So at that point, that goes into a whole other strategy towards the end of lane phase, which we'll touch on, but that's our goal. We're trying to get to the ping pong, and we want to be consistent, and you do that by looking at jungle pathing, and that deduces how you play the lane. Does all that make sense and what decisions you're making there?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay. So with that said, let's watch how you play the early game here. So if we shouldn't push, right? That's what we kind of decide. Oh, actually, we decided you could push because you have coverage. So you can do whatever you want with this lane right now. That said, you should still be placing vision around the scuttle spawn. That's a sketchy trade. Yeah, that grievous wounds is pretty nasty on you.
Yeah, it's real rough. Clegg got my flash off that one.
Okay, so what should you do right away? You should ward. Yep. All right, so I like that you warded over here. So many people ward up here. If you're going to ward this bush, especially in the early game, you should at least put it in the very edge. I still think warding right where my cursor here is better because what it's going to do is it's going to give you more time to react to a gank. Because if Lee Sin's ganking top, I mean, he could walk all the way around. I don't think that's likely. If he's more likely to come through here, right? And if you warded right here, then you have an extra 3 seconds to react, which is meaningful. It's a lot, right? So if this ward accomplishes the same thing as this ward, but it gives you a bigger window to react, it's probably better to place it here, right? Because he's not going to have access to Blast Cone. He's only going to be level 2 or 3 if he ganks, and he's not going to. I mean, he could use a ward to make this happen, it depends on the Lee Sin, but I mean, in League of Legends, a lot of decisions you make are based on assumptions, and you try to pick the best one. So obviously, you can't account for every situation, but you try to make the best choice possible, which again I think is over here. But again, I like that you're warding on the edge here. If you ever ward this bush, period, ward the edge. No reason not to put it up here. You're just giving yourself even less time to react, right? So yeah, you did place the ward. I like that. At this point, I may have just pinged like assistance just so Rammus was looking. You walk away. So you got a nice push. I think recalling here it's fine. Cloth armor. All right. And you walk back. I like that you bought control wards. So in the early game, your control ward should either go here or pixel if you have enough time to do it. Chances of you, and I would put this pink back here. It forces the guy to walk further into the bush to clear it. So it takes longer to get back to lane, and it opens up a bigger window if your jungler's nearby to punish. And the vision you lose towards this side isn't really meaningful anyways, especially if you're putting yellows over here. So, all right. We haven't really seen Lee Sin yet. Rammus is top side right now, so you don't really have to be afraid. You shouldn't let him push this for free. You should try to pull it up, and if he tries to trade onto you, Rammus can just gank him here. Right, so if he went onto you, Rammus can come up behind, and you can basically, the idea is you want to try to keep it frozen here.
Yeah, I think, I was just nervous from the first time, so yeah, I think.
And I would ping too.
Yeah, I should have pinged Rammus for this one.
He's not even watching.
Because I think I let the wave crash.
He should have just ran straight into the lane just to try to stall the recall. Whatever. Anyways. Again, you had coverage. I mean, you're already level 5, right? So you had coverage because the way jungle pathing worked out. You warded when you got the wave in, so that was good. And then you took a bad trade, but since you're building a wave anyways, you were able to get a shove in and you recalled. So all good habits. And when you recalled was on this push, right? You had a big wave. You'll see once you get access to more levels and more items towards the end of lane phase, when the ping pong starts, that's all it is, right? You get a wave to here, then they get a wave to here, and it's usually a decent-sized wave, and that gives you windows to do actions. So recall, like you did there, it gets you a free week recall window, or you can go and get deep vision, or you can roam with the jungler and do an invade, or just disappear on the map, right? By doing the ping pong, getting the shove into the tower, it gives you a 20 to 30-second window to do something else. So that's a free recall. If you don't want to recall, okay, get deep vision. If you don't want to do that, okay, look for a play with your jungler invade or something, right? Or maybe a roam mid or maybe a TP. And if you don't want to do that, just disappear. Do any of those things other than just standing in lane staring at tower. Because you may argue, oh, maybe I can get like a 1Q off, or maybe I'll get like some chip damage on a plate. All the other things I said are still more worthwhile than that. If you have already done all of those things, and you already have vision out, there's no gank or roam available, you just recalled, and everyone's showing on the map, so you can't create pressure by disappearing. Okay, just look for damage, or try to get chip damage to tower, whatever. But the point is, if you can do anything other than that, you should do it. Yeah,
right here, I think I was just trying to harass, but didn't really do a whole lot with that.
Well, right now it's not fully under tower either. You didn't get the bounce.
Yeah.
So the idea is you do this on the bounce. So right now your priority is either let it slow push out or hard shove. So the way you hard shove is when the moment the next wave is coming, you start pounding the enemy wave. That way, you've already if you thin it out before the next wave is coming, it still kind of gets frozen. Whereas if you start hitting DPSing the wave as the new wave is coming in, you accelerate the push and you aggro the minions by starting the push anyways. So what's going to happen is your minions don't die as much. You kill their minions faster, so you end up with a successful push. And I'll show examples of that because I know that probably wasn't the clearest explanation, but I'll show examples of it because it's going to happen. Good trade. He fought with you. You hit your E. You already had a tentacle down, whatever. You got 3 tentacles. Good damage. I like that you're not scared of him because a lot of top lane matchups are very brawly. You're going to get low. Some champions have what we call front-loaded damage where you lose a lot of HP really quickly, and then they have downtime for 5 to 10 seconds, right? They kind of have to chill out. Kled is kind of like that, right? He has his W where he attacks you really fast, and then it does the 4th auto hits really hard based on missing health. And then that Q is relatively low cooldown, but the pullback hits hard too. And then he's just sitting there waiting for it to come back up, right? Whereas illoai has a 2-second cooldown when she ults in her W, right? And can just keep chaining that in. She's kind of bursty too, but she is not gated as cooldowns as much as Kled is, especially when you have access to ulti. So yes, Kled's going to hit hard at first, and ideally you're playing around his W, right? Because it has a sound effect and an animation, so you don't really go near him until that's down. Good Kleds will hold it as long as possible, last hitting only with their Qs, but eventually they will use it or they'll have to give up CS, so you kind of wait for that. But the idea is don't be scared, and which you weren't, so I just kind of wanted to talk about that. You get a recall, and you didn't quite get a shove. I mean, it's not a terrible spot to recall anyways. It's coming back into you, and he's going to want to recall too, so this is fine. Unless I guess if he remounts, he could stay. I wouldn't have pushed that right away.
Yeah, I shouldn't have cleared that. I realized after I did it, I was like, oh, I should not have.
So this is a situation where I would have wrote that down in my notebook or whatever. Like, I just, like, if I see a wave building, I would just write down, like, let the wave push. And then when I read that note, I'll remember this moment. And I'll read that periodically throughout every game I play. And because this is something, like, it's not massive, but it matters, and I want to make sure I'm actively thinking about it, or it's just in my mind somewhere. So this is an example of something I write down. Anyways, your face checking should be okay though. Yeah, your ulti is coming up.
He used ulti to clear my ward.
He really wanted to fight you. He hasn't recalled, and you have.
Yeah,
your ulti was almost up. But he's pushing back into you, though, so let's see if you one-shot this. You should just chill. I mean, you got to be careful. Remember when we talked about deciding what you do level 1, if you're going to push a freeze or pull the wave or whatever? You want to use your abilities in a way that influences the way you want the wave to go. So if you're trying to let the wave freeze or come into you, if you're using spells on the wave, you want to make sure the spells are only hitting minions in a way that will last hit only, right? You don't want to accidentally push the wave. So in this situation, you use your spell to guarantee last hit, but because you had a tentacle up, it slapped 4 other minions, right? And now it's going to push. And if you made the decision, that's fine. But the idea here is if you're using spells that affect the wave negatively or positively in whatever way, you want to make sure that that was a decision you made. So if the wave starts pushing when it was originally freezing for you, that means you did something. And if you're not sure why it happened, that means that you made a mistake. Like, you weren't thinking about it. And we want to start thinking about things, right? So that's a situation where, again, you can write that down in your notebook, like pay attention to the wave or whatever. Even if you, and I'll rewrite the same thing. Like, if I do that 3 times a game, I'll have that note listed 3 times in my notebook, because it's kind of like the punishment when you're a kid, or you've seen on TV, like Bart Simpson, where he's like, I will behave in school or whatever. He writes it 100 times. It does engrave that in your head. That was the whole idea. It cramps your hand. It's a waste of time. It's really boring, but it does engrave it into your mind. All right, so far, I mean, nothing too bad. I mean, Lane's been pretty passive. You've been very diligent about placing vision. I really like that. Someone, like, no offense to you, but, like, for someone in your skill level, I mean, maybe this game's an outlier, but you're being very active in your warding, and I like that. We'll see what happens when we get towards the end of the game. Obviously, this game is a little bit of a stomp, so maybe you won't have the option or too many situations where you have to ward for splits or whatever. You shove it in, and this is where I wouldn't have. So I just kind of want to back up. This is an example of how to get the shove. I said I'd show you an example. So right now, the wave's going to be kind of stuck here. So what I would do is I wouldn't touch this wave until this wave is about to hit. When this wave is about to hit, then I start spamming my spells, because what will happen is if you try to hard push this, it'll just get frozen a little closer to the tower. Whereas if you start doing this when the next wave is just about here, you'll have a backup wave to further push it in the tower, and it won't thin out or anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you shove it here, it gets closer to tower, it thins out even more, and now you can keep the freeze going a little longer. Whereas if the wave was still up here with like 3 to 4 minions alive, you'd be able to safely reach these guys without taking damage, and you'd have a bunch more minions helping with the push to get it done, right? And that's how you execute a more consistent push every time. It's coming, and he's pushing back into you. So we're in the pseudo ping pong. Our ping pongs aren't being done correctly, but it's all right. Nice, you get the E, and he should just die here. Yeah. He remounted. Damn.
Nope. Yeah, this is where I screwed up. I was like, oh.
I think so. You had flash, right? So let's look at the situation. So right off the bat, I would be standing on top of this tentacle because I don't want him to kill it. because when you ulti, they come invulnerable. So I'm staying on top of it. And if he tries to fight me, I'm
Yeah.
just going to point blank E him and then ulti. So they're both up, and I get one. You get one
Yeah.
extra tentacle. Now on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
the moment he flashes here, I think you should be flashing too. Look how low he is. You don't want him to
Yeah.
build up his passive.
Mm-hmm.
The Q doesn't quite connect. Oh well.
Yeah, missed the Q. Yeah.
So
That
I think if you flash instantly, you probably would have one more auto up a little sooner. I think he still
mm-hmm.
doesn't die though, so that Q really needed to connect. But if you got that
Yeah.
other tentacle too, right? You positioned aggressively in your tentacle, it wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
died. And that extra tentacle, I mean, he's definitely dead in that situation.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I think I mean, a lot of always do this too in higher elo is that they just hump their tentacles, right? They know that if you try to fuck with me and go near my tentacle, you're gonna eat it, right? That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
Unless you're like really behind or it's like a really bad matchup, but and otherwise it's I mean that goes for anyone, right? If I'm really behind or I'm in a really shitty matchup, it's not gonna go well no matter who you are. So, anyways, obviously that was definitely winnable.
Yeah.
Whatever, we TP
Uh,
back. I think TPing in the early game is fine. During lane phase, be selfish with your TP. Don't wait for the perfect
mhm.
opportunity. Just use it for lane. It's fine. Just try to use it as
Okay.
best as you can for lane to get really, really good recall timings and maybe get a situation where your laner is stuck. You got a free recall and they're stuck there, and maybe you can shove it in and they just lose mana and they miss minions slowly until they're forced to take a bad recall, whatever the case is. But just use it for yourself. Once you get into mid game, then it
Mhm.
starts to become more of a team spell. But I like that you used it for lane there. It's fine. You're constantly keeping stocked on your ping, so I like it. I cap out. If I have nothing else to buy, I'll buy. Make sure I buy 2 control words every single time I recall. So I like
Yeah, I
it.
think in the early game I have a better habit of that, but then I get like a little bit like when I'm buying components, I tend to like get my item slots clogged up, so I'm like, oh shoot.
So real quick, I wouldn't commit to this unless he commits to you. So if he uses
Mhm.
his E, that's where I would ulti. But he walks up, starts hitting you, and then you just ult right away. And now, I mean, he hasn't E'd yet, so you can
Yeah.
choose just to leave if he wants to. Um, and
Yeah, I
that,
think I was a little trigger happy on that ult.
yeah, it's like a mind game thing. A lot of people, uh, someone's in their face and they think, oh, okay, I'm gonna like you. I'm gonna back up a little bit. I'm tripping over my words. When you're playing as champions that have some sort of CC to disrupt you, or they have some sort of gap closer or escape tool, and you have an important spell like an ultimate and allow this AoE, like I'm gonna destroy you ultimate, you want to be thinking about what stops you from doing that, right? Like people who can get away from allow easily with movement spells, that's annoying. Or people who can CC Alawi for a long period of time, allowing the DPSs to burst her down, that also is detrimental to Alawi, right? And so with that in mind, you should be thinking about those spells, and that way you're more likely to handle them properly in the middle of a skirmish or a 1v1. So if you know that, like Leona, you don't want to go near her because she's just going to like auto you and stun you, then you try to stay away from her in a fight, right? Or you're watching her and you see her use that spell on someone else, that's your cue to go in. The whole idea is you're thinking about it before it happens, because normally when skirmishes are about to happen or fights are about to happen or team fights are about to happen, you usually have some sort of warning. Usually there's like an objective that there's some tension building around or whatever. You can kind of predict it in most cases. So that gives you time to think about what you need to do to be successful. And as you do that thought process, you will get better at it, right? So you'll be able to think quicker, faster. You'll be able to retain more information. So it becomes more, one, you're more consistent in the amount of info you can actually hold is better. All right, he walks away. That's fine. I would shove it in and try to force his TP. He stayed. All right. Whatever. Are you close to a cleaver? Not quite. You need one more wave. So I would stick around for one more wave. You can start advancing your ward line because you can shove the lane pretty quickly, faster than he can because he didn't go Tiamat, right? So you can shove out, and when you get shoved, because remember, we're towards the end of lane phase now, so you can shove waves pretty fast because you have a lot of points in your queue now. You've got some 80 items under your belt. That when you have those windows, right, we talked about you can do things to that, like a free recall or get deep vision. So if you shove this wave instantly, you have 20 seconds roughly to get deep vision or recall or whatever. So you can walk down here. Instead of putting your trinket over here, you can put it over this wall. Or if you have enough time and it's safe to do so, you can place it right here in this choke. And that's how you advance your vision line. You get to a point in the game where you're able to consistently push quicker, and that gives you more time to ward deeper. That's the only reason we don't ward deeper in the early game, because we can't do it quick enough. But now we can. So there's no point not to. And you're just ramping up. You just want to make sure you're getting your gold, getting good recalls in when you have your items so that you can be this raid boss in the side lane. You should have Cleaver now, so you should just prioritize recalling. Whenever you get a really important item, just get your recall in right away, which is what you do. So kudos to you. Yep, you've got it, plus Tabby now. Yeah, wording is on point. I think this pink could be moved down to this pixel, and then you start pushing your yellows deeper. That's what I would do at this point in the game.
Okay.
Like, this shouldn't go here. You have plenty of time, right? This wave's here. He's nowhere to be seen. You can walk up and place this here, or even here. And if you have vision in this choke, and then you have your control word here, there's literally, Lee Sin can't do anything topside unless he does a lane gank. That's it. Because if he walks from base through here, he gets seen by the yellow. If he walks through here up to blue to gank, he gets seen by the yellow. And if he walks through this choke to walk up river or to go mid or go into your side of the jungle, the pink will see him here. These two wards, one here, will completely destroy all ganks topside unless it's a long lane gank. And that's why it's when you finally have the windows to do those pushes, that's why it's so strong. Because that information is good for your team too. Like, it helps you play safe and scale up, but it also gives your jungle information, your team information, so they know they can play aggressive if they want to. Or maybe take a dragon or whatever. Nice tower push. At this point in the game, I would just gun it bot lane and just take dragon with the team, unless it looks like they're already doing it. So whatever. So I just stay top now.
It got stolen.
Yeah. Herald's coming up. As a top laner, I'm always tracking my top laner summoner spells and paying attention to Herald. So if I have priority or control of my lane and my team's ahead, you don't want to forget about Herald ever. I would say Sterix would be fine next, which is what it looks like you're going.
Oh yeah, we didn't do it that game.
So many times when people have leads, they just forget about Herald. Like, and especially in lower elo, even in higher elo, people still forget about Herald. It's kind of sad. It's been out for so long. It's such a good item, or not good item, good objective to take. So you should just be looking to group. Yeah, you guys didn't take care of all this game. Oh well. That was a nasty LT. Just be aggressive. Yeah, this is good, really good. So let's walk back.
I died for it, but that was good. 1 for 3.
So we're walking in there. I like that you don't bitch out, because like when you're playing champions like Aatrox and illoai, who are really good in getting this big AoE off on the team, and they get rewarded for being over aggressive. Like Aatrox, he's kind of squishy, but he has so much healing, right? And so if he gets into 5 people, they're gonna almost melt him. But if he can consistently land the knockups, right, he's gonna get massive amounts of health back. So he becomes really hard to kill. illoai is similar. If she gets CC'd and focused down, she'll probably die quickly. But if she's able to get a big ulti and those tentacles hit enough people, she's gonna heal it all back up again. So she becomes a really tanky character. And to accomplish that, you have to be over aggressive. So a lot of people are bad illoais or bad champions of this class. They see this, right, and then they freak out. They flash away or whatever. Instead, it hits, and you keep committing. You keep committing. You keep committing. Like, you're not giving up. That's good. And I just want to talk about it because I want to recognize why this is good. This is how you play these class of champions. You got to keep doing this. So that's good. And it looks like you got one more fight and the game's over. So you respawn.
Nothing interesting really happens after this, because I literally just farm bot and
Just kind of
they
end
just
mid.
literally shove mid all the way to Nexus.
I like that you didn't ARAM it mid, though, because sometimes the game can sell out. If your team's sieging and they have good pressure, just hit something else so that there's 2 points of pressure, and they can't. Because what they can do is they'll just match the group mid and just endlessly wave clear if they have enough wave clear in their comp. So whatever, game's over. So with that game, I think your warding was really good. I think you had that 1-1v1 that you messed up on. You could have just been more aggressive on your positioning on the tentacle, and even after that, if you flash instantly, you could have saved it. But I think if you flash instantly, it still would have been a little too close. I think the big thing to take away is just aggressively defending the tentacles when you're even or ahead. Right? There's no reason not to, unless there's like some edge circumstance. Right? And then outside of that, we talked about the early game thought process, right? Thinking about pathing, thinking about how that influences your game. And then we also talked on how to get that ping pong going properly, how to push properly, right? That's what I want you to take away from this game. Because we didn't really have much of a mid-game, right? The only thing mid-game that kind of got screwed up is Herald, right? We got out of lane phase, did drag on a little bit, and then Herald, we hit 20 minutes, Herald died, and you guys were ahead. You had priority topside, and we never got it. So
Yeah, we
and that's
definitely
what
could have gotten that.
yeah, your jungler was playing more towards mid-bot side anyways this game, but if I'm
Hmm.
able to get priority or items to champion can push really hard and get like a 20-second window, and I know my jungler's playing bot side or I see that, I would still just ask, right? And this is a big skill to have in solo queue, communicating with the team. So pinging Mia's, if you're like we talked about when your Rammus had coverage for at level 2 or 3 and you were pushing up, I said I would ping here, right? The idea is you're trying to make sure your teammates are paying attention to what you're doing. You're not necessarily asking for a gank, but every chance I have to communicate, I do it. So if I'm pushing up and I know that I don't know where the jungler is, and I know that I could be ganked here theoretically, and my jungler's in the area, I'll ping, even though I know he's in a position of coverage. I can't trust that he's paying attention, so I communicate it. And if I know I have priority and I'm shoving up and I see Herald's up, I'll ping Herald assistance, and I'll even type out, we can do Herald, I have priority. I give some short statement to incentivize it, right? To make him confident that can happen. And obviously your gameplay matters more, but I do think it is important to effectively communicate in solo queue because it does help with consistency.
Yeah.
And building the skills now will also translate to competitive play if you ever feel like playing in online tournaments or whatever the case is. So that's that game. All in all, I mean, not too much happened. I saw a lot of good things by you, but definitely some things that we can learn. So let's just touch on this Yorick game. So this is a 42-minute behemoth. I think we're going to take a look at lane phase. We're going to skim through it really quickly because we've got about 20 minutes right now because we started around 9:14. So, yeah, we got about 20 minutes to go through this.
Okay.
Which, I mean, we're really looking at mid-game now because we already kind of touched on early game because the behaviors we talked about early game for your illoai game apply to this game too. It applies to all lane phases. If you're thinking actively and applying that thought process to all your games, it'll just work. So we're going to skim through it. Pay attention, see if there's any outliers in early game, but we're really going to focus on where you path in the mid-game, especially on Yorick. He's a very split push oriented character and not very great in team fights, right? So this will really highlight if you know your lane assignments well. So same thing, you start off right away. I like it. You're watching. I like it. You're consistent. This is good. In saying this, like if you do watch every game, and we'll see if you buy enough pinks again. If you're doing this every game, it looks like you do have consistency in your play, and the fact that your game count's so low means that honestly, if you did push, yeah, you're at a negative win rate right now. But if you did stick to the characters you're good at and pushed for more games, even though you may go on loose streaks here and there, you may demote here and there, the net would be growth, right? You would climb. That's kind of my opinion so far from what I've seen. And I haven't really seen your mid game, so maybe you're just awful in the mid game. We'll see.
But, always a possibility.
Yep. So at this point, let's just back up and see what information we get in the early game. So right off the bat, so you show right away. So they already know where your jungle is starting, and then she shows from you. So both sides. So we know he's starting bot. So again, we assume he's probably going bot to top. Olaf is doing the same. He could go for an invade. So we just want to. At this point, we're looking for where he's going just to make sure we have coverage. So at this point, we can push, pull, or freeze. It doesn't really matter. Against an Olaf, letting it come into you, though, is a really good option because he's a really powerful early ganker. And it looks like you guys are kind of keeping it frozen. That's fine. Nice E. So far, so good. Get the tentacle. I like it. Stacking up. Miss the E. The only thing I'll say is that E went really wide if we look back at it.
Yeah, that
when
was
you
a
are
real
throwing
bad
spells, you want to try to go for the really high success rate throws. Like even just sitting there holding the E against better Illauis or better players, they'll know that you have that up. They'll see the 3 graves and they know that if I get hit by this, I'm going to get a ton of damage. Like they're going to be afraid. They're not going to position aggressively, right? So as you get climb and you play against better players, you can just hold on to that. And then you miss another one. That sucks. All right, so at this point, you should be warding, right? Now, he got this, so you actually don't have to ward now. I mean, actually, I would still do it. Yeah, okay, that's fine. You put it towards edge. I still think warding right here would have been better because this will cover if the Ram or Mumu comes up through here, but this is still a blind choke, and you don't get the information you need until he's right here, whereas if you put it out here, you'd see him when he's right here, right? So more time to react. And this would have taken you an extra, like, 1.5 seconds to walk and place it there.
Yeah.
But that's a little nitpicky. So far, okay. You get hit by the thing. You dodge it. Now, real quick. if you just let this tentacle stay here and wait for the debuff to go, none else will spawn, right? You play Allow, you probably know that. I just wanted to touch on that. Okay.
Playing against him, I think playing against Ilaoi, I tend to forget sometimes like how her spawn, like the tentacle spawn mechanics work for
Yeah.
when you get Testa spirited. So or when you become the vessel rather. So
Yeah.
that's like one of the things where I have to remember. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how Ilaoi works.
A situation where if like you make that mistake, like, oh shit, that's right, that works differently. That's something I would write in my notebook. So just an example. Really good E there. Really nice. I think this champion's kind of dumb if he hits that. All right, now we're at level 6. So now's where you can kind of just get free recalls in. And that's what I would do here, because now we're at the point where we're getting into levels. You haven't recalled in a while. You should have enough for Sheener. Yeah, you do. So you can just get a recall in here. Now, obviously, yep, there's a gank, whatever. Wow, okay.
Yeah, this was I was like, really 3 people? Okay.
I mean, the point is, after I got the shove in, I would have just prioritized recalling. And if if you are gonna stick around, you need to place ward, right? Because you're dead right now. You don't have a trinket up. So this is another situation. So if you're in a bad spot and you want to stick around and you don't have a trinket or ward available, or like you're in a kind of a scary push, right? Ask your jungler to ward for you. And the idea is you don't want to ask when you get in this position. You should see that, okay, I'm probably the next wave's coming. It's gonna be pushed. I don't have a vision to place, but I don't really want to recall after I get the wave pushed. Whatever. Ask for help. Ask if your jungler can ward for you. If the worst he's gonna do is say no, and if he says yes, then it's safe for you to stay. If he says no, then you probably should recall, even though you really don't want to, especially in the early game, right? Again, that comes down to communication, right? You can get things accomplished if you communicate. It is a skill. You TP in. Again, early TPs are fine, especially for lane phase. Be selfish. You're freezing. I like it. Let's see if you're able to maintain it. Yeah, you needed to thin the wave out. You probably should just kill the cannon right away.
That was the rough part, yeah, because I
get hit by that.
I spawned my low ghouls too, so
so rough. I mean, you can sustain up with your Q. Just dodge your E and just try to last hit with your Q, and you'll be good. Nice. Oh, he ganked. That's fine. All right. So far, so good. You should be able to get a plate. Nice. Good shit. You should know she doesn't have TP, because if you're in a situation where you don't know for sure what the TP timer is, it's bad. As a top laner, take ownership for your laner, right? You don't have to know where jungle's summoners are. You don't have to know mid or whatever, but you should always know the top laner summoners. You should be entering them in chat if you see them, right? Ping it real quick, hit tab, ping it when you see it, then come back and enter the time later. And if you don't play with timestamps on, turn them on. All right, let's back up and look at this 1v1. So you hit the E, it looked like, and you go in.
Yeah.
Nice.
I missed the cradle, though, or the whatever the heck it's called.
Yeah. I mean, still win this. Nothing really mattered, because she's still stuck around.
Yeah, maiden, and I got out of the way so that she couldn't hit me and the spirit, so, I know from people playing against me what they do.
I mean, that's really helpful when you're playing against the character you play against. So you went Merc Treads this game. I think that's fine. They've got a shit ton of CC. You're not buying pinks, though. Well, actually, let's look how much gold you had. Maybe you didn't have enough. I think that might have been the case.
I had enough for one.
Nah, if you look, you have 20 gold. You could have waited, but I think you're at the threshold where it was okay to not wait, because 20 gold is a decent amount, and you had a wave crashing, so you're gonna miss the whole wave XP, potentially a little more if you.
Yeah, I was a little nervous. I think about that.
I think that's fine. All right, let's watch this. Shoving, your jungler's coming. We see these guys there. You should be aware of this and getting ready to walk over.
Yeah, I should have been moving to it immediately, not farming.
Yeah, and then you take a long route. I guess he's running away, so your path was fine. You definitely should have been there sooner, and now you both just lose flashes, and you're forced out right away. All right, and Lux roamed. That was good. This doesn't really matter. That was pretty much Lux doing that. Okay, so we're approaching the end lane phase now. Again, we don't want to think about Herald, or we want to keep our mind on Herald. If we're constantly able to shove in, because York's good at that, we should be thinking about Herald. We should be pinging it, talking about getting it, especially with an Olaf. He's pretty good at with the sustaining attacks, but he gets when he's low. He's pretty good at taking shit. Especially when you're a split pusher, getting heroes is really important. That was a bad
Mhm.
TP. So we're approaching mid game now. Lane phase is getting close over. You're already
Yeah.
halfway there, and let's just look at this. This is the was an eye opener for me. One of my friends kind of pointed this out to me. Let's look at the wave, right? So
Mhm.
you TP'd for 2 melees and 3 casters. This is what, 21, 21.
Yeah.
So that's 42 gold, and these are, let's say, 15 each, so 45. So you're getting you're getting 67 gold. Is your 6-minute long TP worth 67 gold?
No, not in the mid game.
No. Even in the early game, actually, in the early game, it's not the gold, it's the experience. That's what matters. Making sure they're not like hitting level 3 way before
Yeah.
you and you're zoned off an entire wave, right? That's what matters.
Mhm.
But the gold isn't. And now that we're in a point where you already have access to all your spells, the only thing that really matters is the gold. And
Yeah.
67 gold is a laughable amount of gold. And this was an eye opener for me about a year and a half ago for one of my buddies. He was giving me shit for my TPs, and then I was like, he wanted to show me what he was talking about after game. He just looked at this. He was like, "Hey, see this wave? Is this worth your gold? This much gold?" He like counted it out. And I was like, "No, it's not." And then we talked a little more about it. And it's like, think of when you're TPing in the mid game, when it's not for pressure. Think of it if you're about to TP for something that isn't for pressure. Think about it in terms of gold. How much gold are you getting for this TP? So a lot of people
Mhm.
TP for what they think are big waves, and then they count it out. Even if it's a can wave, it ends up being like 100, 150 gold. Is
Yeah.
that worth a 6-minute long summoner spell that can impact the pressure of a game for 6 minutes?
Mhm.
Right? It's not right now. If it was 4 or
Yeah.
500 gold, okay.
Yeah.
But my rule of thumb is if it's not at least worth a kill, like 300 gold plus, I'm not going to TP for
Mhm.
it in the mid game. It's just not going to happen. Or if,
So like
yeah,
only like 2 waves, like if it's a mega wave.
yeah, I would say like 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's 2 waves with a cannon, fine. If it's 2 normal waves, maybe. I mean, you gotta be smart about it because maybe there's 2 waves coming, but there's also a dragon spawning in 2 minutes, right? And you want to be able to have the split pressure for it because especially when you're playing Yorick, he's not a team fighting champion, so not having that split pressure is really bad.
Yeah.
But start thinking about it in terms of gold in mid game, and then try to incorporate objectives that are spawning soon, right? All right, so
Yeah, that makes
this is
sense.
another long lane phase game. Jesus.
Yeah, this is super
All right,
long lane phase.
you die. All right, so you're pushing up. I want to back up a little bit here. So you do have coverage. This pink, where do you think it should be?
Yeah, it should have been farther down. I think I just like hastily threw it
Yeah,
in the brush.
and we want to be consistent, right? So if you're gonna place it here, you already know, but place it in the edge. And ideally, the pink should be here, the yellow should be here, because here's the thing: when she gets a little bit of a push on, she's more consistently going to clear this pink in this section than she would clear it if it was over here. The idea is this pink in this bush is more
Yeah.
defensible. If you
Mhm.
were to track your games, for 100 games you put a pink in this bush, and you played the same matchup every time, and in 100 games you put a pink in this bush, same matchup every time. Um, this pink on average would last significantly longer in terms of
Yeah.
lifespan. And then once you are starting to push, again, the idea is we want to move that pink to here and the yellow over this wall or into this choke, right? So, yep. You get ganked again. Again, if this was further, you would have had way more. Because again, you don't see him until he's right here, and by the time it's here, it's too
Yeah,
late.
it's way too late.
Yeah. And if this pink at this point in the game, you can get deep rewards, so you would have seen him when he started roaming from here. Like that would have been huge. And then,
Yeah.
and if you walked up through here, your trinket, like he would have no access. Just play couldn't even happen. And we're at 18 minutes of the game now, so there's definitely probably window, especially since you've been pushing in consistently. Let's see what you're building. Triforce into. What are you doing with this Negatron cloak?
Building into Zerat's.
Okay. All right. So now we can start talking about lane assignment. So the map is finally opened up. Mid's down, top's down on both ends. Dragon is not up right now. No one got Herald again, go figure. But
Mhm.
now the map is opening up. So this is where, as a split pusher, lane assignment is a big topic, especially champions who aren't good in team fights or better in side lane. Lane assignment is really important. And how would you decide where to go for your lane assignment?
I would say it depends on where the towers are at. So in this case, if I was evaluating right now, I would say bot is probably a better priority. Well, if we can get mid because it's low health, that would be pretty big. But bot as well because it would, um, it still has the tier 1 up, so we would be able to push that in pretty quickly if possible.
So, not that there's anything inherently wrong with that. I want to shift the way you approach it. When you're split pushing, or sideline or whatever, it's not about getting towers and getting objectives. I mean, that's nice. But the thing that matters above all else is pressure. And the way you create pressure is being somewhere other people aren't, and having a way to incentivize them to come from where they are to where you are, right? And that means that if everyone's bot side, right, then you go top side because you want them to move to where they aren't. You want to break them up with the pressure you create. And it has to be, you have to be able to incentivize it, right? So if Baron is the main objective up right now, obviously we don't see where people are grouping up right now, but let's say everyone is around Baron, right? You would go bot lane because if you can get a push going and build up a wave, they're not going to care about tier 1. But if you can get to tier 2 and then threaten and inhib, they're going to leave. Someone's going to leave Baron and stop you, or they're going to hastily force a play that has a high risk of failing on around Baron pit, right? And what you're doing is you're in a position to take a lot of the base. You're where no one is, so they can't really contest you in the first place. They can't stop it before it happens. And the trick is also making sure that you're getting the pressure in time. So if everyone's grouped around Baron and you're walking to the wave, right? Or the wave is right here and the nearest tower is over here, like that, you're not going to create the pressure in time. So you will need to be on the front foot of it. But again, the idea is you're drawing people away from the thing that matters, which is the objective people are grouped around. So even if Baron is up and Dragon isn't, if everyone's grouped around here, like maybe trying to fight over Pink or something, then you want to be top lane wailing on this tower, right? Because you want to break up this group. And the idea is also recognize your win condition, right? If you're not a team fight champion, you don't want to be in situations where people are grouped and a team fight can happen. You want to avoid those. And so if you're not split pushing where people aren't, you're not forcing them to split up. So if you're split pushing inside a map where everyone is, you're grouping their team and split pushing that, or pushing that hard, right? That means that they're going to group to try to stop it, which means you're now in a 5v5, 4v4 scenario, which is significantly more likely to break out into a team fight, which is not what you're good at on this character.
Yeah.
Now, illoai is a little better at that, so it's a little more acceptable there. But at the end of the day, the whole point to take away from that is recognizing what your character excels at. Maybe you can group, maybe you can push with your team, but that's not what your character is designed to do. That's not what you identified how you wanted to play the game when you picked this character, right? So you should actively be doing things that push that agenda. So if people are grouped bot lane and you're not quite in a position of pressure yet, well, if you don't go bot, they're going to take a tower. Okay. But if you go bot, they'll still take the tower. It just may take a little longer. Whereas instead, you let them take bot, you get your pressure back, so now they're forced to break up, and maybe you get a tower in return. And on the flip side, maybe you do go bot, they take the tower slowly, and now they take the second tower over a long period of time. And you just end up over 7 minutes losing 2 towers for nothing, where if you could have given up that first tower right away and then created pressure in time to avoid losing the second tower. And maybe you don't get anything off of it, but at least you'll avoid losing the entire infrastructure of one lane, right? And that's another thing is people get pressured by groups, and then they go to hold it, and then they end up in a situation for 10, 15 minutes straight where, man, I haven't been able to find a window to split push because they've been constantly grouped. I've lost my whole base, and now I can't split push ever. The game's just over because the inhib's down. I have to sit here babysit. I can't carry pressure. And that's where you have to be willing to give up stuff. Like if you screwed up and you don't have tempo advantage and they're group up taking something and you can't create pressure quick enough to avoid losing that objective, go create pressure anyways, because all that's going to happen is you're going to lose more objectives and eventually you'll snowball to a position where you can't split push anyways. So you made a mistake, right? You're going to lose a tower. That's fine. Go create your pressure to break it up as soon as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That definitely is. I think that definitely makes sense.
Well, ask questions. If I wasn't clear, you want me to repeat something, I can.
Yeah, I think it definitely, as a split pusher, feel like that is kind of the goal of what I'm trying to do, especially as York. As a Lowy, I recognize that sometimes it is good for me to be with the team because If I'm really big and I need the team fight, then that's good. But yeah, most of the time I'm going to be just clearing waves and knocking down towers and creating pressure.
So this is wow. They're just like leaving you here. This shouldn't have worked out, but it did. Recall. Dragon's up. So where should you be right now?
Probably away from the rest of the team, which I mean, everybody is split across the map. We should probably be setting up vision around Dragon, though.
I think everyone. This is kind of edge case. Rise got a pick here, and I think it's very likely that. I mean, yes, Rise was top, but I think the rest of their team was over here. And if we rewind,
Okay.
So yeah, these people were waiting for you to shove that wave in, right? And if we switch to Fog, allows mid, and look where Mumu is. So,
Okay.
and the reason I was able to make that guess is because Dragon, like at 25 minutes in the game, it's easier to get Dragon than Baron, right? And this is something that people will always contest over when it's up, meaning that if this is kind of the rule of thumb I give people who are just starting out in split pushing, be on the opposite side of the map of the major objective that it's up. So if Dragon is up, be top lane. If Baron is up, be bot lane. And this is where Dragon spawned. I know that's a very contested item. It makes sense to go top. And yes, Rise was up there and your bot lane was up there, and they just got picked off. But obviously, if you try to get this Dragon, then suddenly these three people come out of nowhere, allow you to watch down you, and the two Olaf just die. Or if you aggressively shove this tower, they're just sitting here, and then you die. Because, again, we can infer that they're there because there's a major objective up that is commonly contested. And then you go top lane, you pick off, you get him, nice. And then you should immediately go back top and shove it out. Instead, you go mid to group with your Draven. And now you're walking back to hold. And yes, they're pushing this. But the idea is you're probably going to lose this tower anyways. Create pressure, hit this, force them to break up and stop you, and maybe trade inhib for inhib. And then you walk back.
That makes sense.
And you're just sitting there. Now you're stuck in a situation where you're just stuck babysitting, right? And you're going to lose this. You can't stop this. And now this is where you can't split push anymore because the inhib fell down. Whereas if you, after you killed Rise here, if you made it, went top lane, you would have already been on this tower and hopefully broke them up. Maybe someone comes up there and clears it. Oh, well, at least you tried. You're playing to your win condition. Then you're trying to shove this out. It takes a long time because of the supers, and it's so easy just to stop you. And now, you can't really create pressure at this point. And we're just kind of watching. And, you're stuck babysitting the wave. And because of this, you guys can never come out of the lane. You can't create meaningful pressure. It means they set up free vision around Baron. It looks like, looking at the timeline, they just take it for free. And then that allows them to keep shoving in. It looks like you guys are about to win a fight, though. So we'll see what happens there. So they get that for free. There's no reason they should lose a fight at this point, but we're going to find out. All right, here we go. So good E and good root. Okay, great start. Getting rid of the Barons is really important. And this is where you should aggressively push. Nice. You guys should push hard as shit. Try to get a tower off this. I like it. I'd go for more. Let them kill illoai. Go for more. I like it. Now you're playing your win condition. I like this. I would go for... Actually, no. I was watching the timers. This is fine. That was good. Cool. So that was good. Let's see what else goes wrong. I mean, that was right. You guys group up mid, and now you're grouping in a siege. What are you good at? That was a nasty flash by illoai.
Yeah,
but you shouldn't be here.
I shouldn't even be like.
You could be hitting this tower or pressuring this. I think top lane's probably, because this is way less to be contested. Like, if you shove them bot, people are going to care about this inhib tower and group up quicker to stop your split, whereas it'll be slower to react to this because they don't really care about this as much.
Yeah.
And then we're at time now, so I'm just trying to skim through to see what's going on. You're just kind of sitting mid. Baron's coming up. This is where, yes, Baron's coming up. We're almost 40 minutes of game. This is going to be a contention. You have TP. You should have already be in this wave, getting ready to pressure this. Be like, if you're going to do Baron, I'm going to take your inhib. And if the fight is stagnated, because again, you do have poke on Morgana and Lux, right? They can throw spells out, maybe combo people. They can stall out the Baron a little bit. Then if they do that, you could potentially end the game. And then if they send people to stop you, then maybe you guys could potentially win a fight. Right? Because now it's outnumbered or whatever the case is. But the point is, I mentioned be where people aren't. You don't play to your win condition. If you're going to group up, then the enemy team will group up too. And then you're much more likely to be in a team fight, which is not what your character is good at, right? Now, if your character is good at team fighting, by all means do that. But if they're not, you should be doing things that actively work towards your win condition. So that started off okay. So yeah, these people just hit bindings. They have Elder. That was a nasty Morgulti. But the Elder is fucking you guys here before they even get there.
Yeah, the Elder just kind of destroyed us, and I think they just pushed to win at this point.
Yeah, it's a 3-dragon Elder.
Yeah.
Damn. All right.
I think.
No, I don't. There's one more fight.
Yeah, there's.
So let's go ahead and jump to that next fight. Let's see. Are you in a position of pressure? That's all we really care about. So inhib is down, but your guys are holding it. So I would be if they're
Yeah.
up here, right? Then I go bot lane and I try to go
Yeah.
this again. And then I still have TP, right? So if they do walk in and they're threatening the end game, then I'll just TP back. But at least I tried to create the pressure, right?
Yeah.
It's probably not going to work at this point in the game, given the game state. But at least you tried.
Mhm.
Because doing the right action every time will help you over time, like making sure you're doing it. Because eventually, you making that right choice may matter in a different game that's similar to this. The point is, you want to make sure you're making the right decisions to get, even if you're probably gonna lose the game. Whatever. So this game, looking at one, lane phase lasted forever. You did have priority top side, it looked like, but you didn't get. You guys never got Herald. No one did. And once you got into mid game, you were kind of bouncing from lane to lane, following your team around. And you weren't. You did have like 2 situations where you played your win condition, but outside of that, you didn't. So in the mid game, I mean, we talked about how you can identify where to go, right? Be where people are. Maybe use the objectives as an indicator, be on the opposite side. And with that, just commit to it. Don't deviate from it. So if your win condition is split pushing, you're not good in team fights, no matter the scenario, do not group up. Now, if you happen to be walking from base and there's a fight breaking out nearby, go there and help. It's fine. But don't actively leave your position of pressure to group up, right? Because that's not right. So, so I think, so to summarize, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Yeah, so to summarize, let me stop my screen share. So to summarize, behaviors. In the early game, think about jungle pathing. Decide how you're going to play levels 3 through 4. Memorize when levels 2, 3, and 6 are. And make sure after you hit level 5 or whatever, you get your first item, recall in. When you are shoving lane, make sure you're actually getting it all the way in. And try to use what we talked about to make sure it gets all the way in, right? Wait for the second wave to come before. If the wave isn't pushed properly, just let it sit where it is and then try hard pushing when the backup wave is coming in, rather than trying to force the existing wave, right? Does that make sense? Do you remember the example that we looked at?
Yeah. So let the wave get the wave all the way up to you, so that you have more pressure to push it into the tower, rather than just trying to have 3 minions go against 3 minions.
Yeah. So yeah, if you know the wave's in a bad spot, you need to push it, and there's 3 versus 3. Don't try to force those 3 minions to die ASAP. Just let it chill there, wait for the next wave to come, and then push, right? So those are the things for lane phase, right? Your warding was okay, but you need to make sure that you're actively advancing that vision line, and also that early bush ward, just put it deeper towards the river that we looked at, right? Like, I like that you're putting it at the edge of the bush, but you should just place it a little further for the level 1 ward, right? Or the level 2 ward. You remember that one?
Yeah, place it closer
Just out
to the Baron pit.
Yeah, you got it. And then as far as mid game, that's what I kind of led off with in summary, which was the whole making sure that your lane assignment's correct if you're team fight or split pushing based champion. I mean, it comes down to just identify what your character's good at and put yourself in that position. If you're good at split pushing, commit to split pushing. Even if you're either the enemy team's grouped up taking something, you're probably still better off split pushing. And if you commit to split pushing in those situations, you'll learn over time when that was a good idea, when that was a bad idea. So you decide to split push, right? Because that's my win condition. And then the enemy team just ends the game like, oh shit, I should have that was wrong, right? And then try to figure out why that was wrong and reach out to me or someone for a second opinion. And then if it's not wrong, like, doesn't end, you get a tower off it, and then you break their split, then it was right? And the idea is you're not going to get to that point unless you just commit to it for a large amount of games, and over time you gain that experience. But all in all, that's kind of what I have to say. Do you have any questions for me?
No, that seems really straightforward, and it helps me understand kind of what I'm doing in the games, and the macro that I'm trying to understand for like game states and stuff like that, especially understanding what my character should be doing.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, if there's nothing else, I mean, if you think of a question, by all means, ask. And If there's nothing
Sure.
else, we can go ahead and call it here. But that said, if
Hmm.
anything pops up, feel free to shoot me a message. I'll always respond. I only charge
Yeah.
money if people want to sit down for an hour plus and talk, right? But if you want me to
Hmm.
look at a matchup real quick or look at like a 20-second clip of a fight or something, just shoot me a message. I'll be more than happy to give you my thoughts on it. So don't be
Yeah.
afraid to take advantage of that. And otherwise, best of luck, man. I do
Yeah.
think that I saw a lot of good things, and I think the big thing for you is actively make a way to focus on your mistakes, like the notebook or whatever the case, whatever works for you. Just actively make sure those are at the forefront of your attention when you play, and then actually play more, right? And we talked about how to identify when it's healthy to play and when it's not, and how to try to start working towards overcoming that anxiety. So, all right.
Yeah. Sorry, I was writing down a lot of stuff.
No, you're good.
Yeah. It helps me like remember it too. Yeah, like you said, when you write it down, you can think about it and uh kind of mull it over a lot better. But I appreciate it. Yeah. I definitely will hit you up probably in a couple weeks and see how like my games have improved, and we could go
Yeah.
over it again.
Yeah,
And
maybe we won't have it right after a
yeah.
patch, so we have a larger pool. So
Yeah, that's a bad timing, but yeah, that'll definitely be helpful to have a larger pool of games to go over.
yeah. All right, man. Well,
Awesome.
best of luck, and we'll be in touch.
All right, thanks very much, Josh. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.